How was the vibe throughout the postseason? Was it an all-time high when they clinch and they get in and they're all confident after winning the wild card series? And then was it an all-time low in the ALDS?
This team never lacked for confidence day to day. So even when they got run over in those first two games in Toronto, no other way to put it, they expected to come back home, win two games, and find themselves back in Toronto for a decisive Game 5.
You are Locked On Yankees, your daily New York Yankees podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Yankees, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making us your first listen. I'm your host, Brian McKeon, with Stacey Gotsoulias alongside me. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. Our first guest, unfortunately, of the offseason is Emanuel Berbari of WFAN. Emanuel, thank you for joining us. Well, I guess you're WFAN, Yankees radio, right? Yankees post-game, we can call it. Baseball Night New York, you're always on too. You're where aren't you? You're everywhere now.
Covering the Yankees wherever I can. So you're right. Unfortunate that this has to be off-season.
Let's make it clear. It's unfortunate because we're recording this on October 13th. That's the only reason why it's unfortunate that you're our first guest.
Everyone knows that. Yeah, like
you don't know.
Yankees aren't playing baseball.
Yeah,
it should have been on like November 8th.
Yeah, in a celebratory fashion. Yeah.
Exactly.
Regardless, we're here. Unfortunately, I want to ask you first though. Your first full season covering the team, 162, there every single day, making the trek to the ballpark. I know you don't want them eliminated, but are you kind of like able to let your hair down a little bit and just like, are you kind of relieved you can relax?
Yeah, the first day there's a little sting and it's bitter. It's all over. Suddenly, you're going 162. You're part of every game in some capacity. You're part of each pitch of the ride. So you don't expect it. You go from being on a playoff run to nothing. So that is sudden for anyone involved, particularly more so for the players involved who were part of the wear and tear of the 162 and finished so well. That's what was different about this 162. And my first time going through it is they started so well, then had 2 months where they really played bad baseball. And then they bounced back and finished as the hottest team in baseball. And then to go in, have that exhilarating playoff win over Boston in Game 3, do or die with Schlittler, and have all that momentum and confidence going into Toronto. And in Game 4, on your own field, in your own ballpark, it ends. It is a bit sudden, but you're right. I'm excited for a couple weeks to reset before college hoops.
So the year overall, disappointing, I'd say, for the Yankees. I don't think anyone's really going to argue with us on that one. How was the vibe throughout the postseason? I mean, you were there, you're in the clubhouse, you see the players. Was it an all-time high when they clinch and they get in and they're all confident after winning the wild card series? And then was it an all-time low in the ALDS? Like, how did the vibe change throughout clinching to getting eliminated? Was it at all different? Did they stay confident? Did you kind of sense going into Game 4, ooh, they might be in trouble here? How'd you feel about everything?
This team never lacked for confidence day to day. So even when they got run over in those first two games in Toronto, no other way to put it, they expected to come back home, win two games, and find themselves back in Toronto for a decisive Game 5. Confidence never wavered. I think that's a big reason why I always go back to the end of that 20-31 stretch, the 51-game stretch in the middle of the season. They were only 6 games over 500 in early August. They were about to get swept away on a road trip. They got swept in Miami. They almost got swept in Arlington. That's when David Bednar pulled a rabbit out of a hat, did those 5 outs and saved that game. And they win that game, and that served as maybe a little springboard for the final 34-14 stretch. And I think a team that wasn't confident in itself never could have done that. They got embarrassed in Miami. They were about to get swept in Arlington. The season was kind of falling off the rails. They were about to be out of a playoff spot. But this team never wavered in belief. Now, what I would say about it is you look at the high of beating Boston, and you don't know. You show up to the ballpark that day. The Yankees, I think we all would agree, with a superior team to Boston this year on paper. And that's like a one-game playoff. It's like it used to be, the one-game wild card. Game 3, do or die. You just never know. It's baseball. Anything could happen. I think there was some tension that day. And then when they win in that way, where Schlittler gives not just an all-time rookie performance, but one of the best playoff performances we'll ever see, they're celebrating hard in that clubhouse. And they're going into Toronto with a lot of confidence. And I contrast the two feelings, that against Boston and the clubhouse post game, all that was told to me while I was upstairs doing post game, I wasn't in that clubhouse. All that was told to me is that was a somber feel.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's not surprising. Now, you mentioned the funk because it's a big topic on this show, because basically the Yankee season was 2 good months, 2 bad months, 2 good months to end the season. And I joked about how October was really the beginning of another 2-month stretch that wouldn't be good if they were going in that pattern. So I wasn't that surprised with their playoff exit. But can you tell us, you don't have to tell us specifics, but were there certain people around more during that funk? Did you see Hal? Was Cashman around more? Like, was anything happening during that horrible stretch?
I think the Yankees were having a lot of internal conversations, so letting alone the front office. Aaron Boone, you don't hear about every meeting with players. You don't hear a lot about the heart-to-heart, but there were a lot of conversations being had. And as Aaron Boone even publicly described, there were some dark moments for this team. There was no sugarcoating or beating around that bush. There were dark moments and times where you wonder, would it turn? And what, because this wasn't some short stretch, as we all know. It wasn't like they lost 8 out of 11. Every team goes through 8 out of 11. But as was the case with a few teams across baseball, not just particular to the Yankees this year, there were 2-month stretch of bad baseball for numerous teams, not just the Yankees. The Dodgers went through it, and saw how miserably the Tigers finished the season just to still beat Cleveland in that wild card round. We saw it for every single team. I don't need to name all of them, but the Yankees did have some dark moments and some dark times. And yeah, there were times where we did see Brian Cashman pop up, but I don't think it was ever alarmist, because I think Brian Cashman over the years has known when a clubhouse is coming off the rails. And I don't think he ever thought that was the case with this team reading the tea leaves. There were a lot of some strong voices and veterans who have been through trying seasons with other teams not named the Yankees, like a Goldschmidt or a Bellinger. And it came to a point where, Giancarlo Stanton had to address the team down the stretch and say, look, this is unacceptable, the way we're playing. And that's the one that got reported and was front and center. There were a few of those times for this group that were dark, but that Stanton players only probably served as a springboard for that latter stretch where they really dominated.
Now, question just to piggyback off of that. Do you see Hal around the building ever? Or is he mainly just not present? Is he in Yankee Stadium? Is he in the Bronx? Because they don't really show it on TV ever when you watch the broadcast. There's never a shot of Hal in a suite or something like that.
It's not like Jerry Jones where you see him every 5 seconds.
No. But there are some owners in sports where they do kind of make it known, hey, he's there, he's in the building, he makes an appearance. I know it was certainly a thing back in the day where George would appear in the clubhouse from time to time. So is Hal ever there? Do you ever run into him? Is he around the stadium at all? Or is he just kind of like stuck in Florida and watches from afar?
It would be tough for me to know in the stadium at all times, because the broadcast booth and press box level is a level below the suite level, where not only fans will enjoy time in suites and clients will enjoy times, but that's where the brass of the Yankees works. That's their office, if you will, also to watch the games on a night in, night out basis if they're there. Now, as we know, Hal Steinbrenner resides in Tampa, as does a big faction of the Yankees brass and front office. But I would have a tough time knowing when he's actually in the ballpark. I know he is there. Like, this isn't a guy who's absent from the day-to-day and just says, handle it. There are times where that can be handled from Tampa, and you can be part of the fabric and day-to-day from a remote observation. Well, remote isn't really the case when you consider the Yankees spring training facility is in Tampa. So the organization runs out of Tampa in some ways, but you don't have to be there every day in the Bronx, but I know he is there from time to time sitting in that suite, because it's just too apparent.
Interesting. That I'm just curious about that, because you don't get it. It doesn't get known publicly very much, like his involvement with the team. It's like, I wonder if he appears and walks through the clubhouse, and does he talk to Aaron Judge? Does he have conversations with, Stanton? Like, it is a curious thing, because you don't hear that. And you heard it about George all the time. So you don't hear it about Hal at all. So I was just curious if, like, you had a sense of that or not, because you just don't know.
Well, a couple interesting points there on how it varies from organization to organization. There are public-facing owners, and like Jerry Jones is the most extreme example of that. So comparing any situation to Jerry Jones would be like, oh, well, that's on its own tier, on its own island. But it does vary organization to organization. There are brilliant owners across professional sports who you never hear from. And there are bad ones who are very public-facing, or vice versa. It really does vary. But I will give you something if you're wondering about George Steinbrenner and the way things were and having those player interactions and being abrasive at times with players one-on-one. Hal Steinbrenner, when I was at spring training this year, was very present in terms of like walking to go see Aaron Boone near the Yankee clubhouse, like going just to check in, because you're more around if you reside in Tampa and the team's part of spring training and the build up to the season a couple of weeks to go. You do your check-ins and you talk to different people and you keep yourself apprised on what's going on. So that's one personal anecdote I have on that regard. But I do think it's a little bit of everything. It's some from Tampa, some more in person in the Bronx, and there are checkpoints throughout the year.
Interesting. Okay. Stacey, you want to ask this last one before we hit a break?
Yeah, so Bob Nightingale, who has a worse batting average than Anthony Volpe did in the playoffs when it comes to breaking news, reported that Boone could be out of a job. Do you think there's any chance of that happening?
We could come back to this months from now and you guys can tell me, oh, look how not cued in you are to give this response. So feel free to roll the tape for later. But as I currently sit here, I think there's no chance Aaron Boone is getting let go. I just think there's no chance with a couple of weeks left. I'm sure some fans would say a couple of weeks left, but a couple of years left on his contract extension that he just signed this past offseason. So coming off a year where Soto walks and then you match the win total from the previous season in the regular season, you get bounced in the playoffs, but not right away. Like if they'd gotten eliminated in Game 3 against Boston, especially since it's Boston, arch rival franchise that Aaron Boone has already lost twice to in the postseason in his tenure. If that happened again, maybe I could see reports circling that it could be a little bit different, but still there would be an evaluatory phase that I think Brian Cashman and the franchise would go through. Now that they had, 5 home playoff games? Like from a business standpoint, especially considering they're in the playoffs every single season, give or take a year.
Right.
I just don't see a world where Aaron Boone with a couple of years left to go. Brian Cashman has said, I like going a decade with my managers. He went a decade with Joe Girardi. Aaron Boone's a couple of years from a decade. I would think he plays out this contract and then goes from there.
This is like an attractive woman at a bar saying no to giving me her number. Like I knew what the answer was, so I'm not upset, but I'm a little disappointed. I'm just a little disappointed.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of. It's interesting to me when I look at the feel and the tone and tenor on social media, understanding that social media isn't always real life. Like there's a lot of algorithms and stuff where things filter to the top and you think, oh my goodness, like this is how everybody thinks. But then you speak to people in the real world, and you actually find differing points of view and you hash them out. So I'm not going to say the consensus is what you're thinking, Brian, but if you scroll social media, that would be the consensus. But also I think there's this other fact of being a Yankee fan right now, where even if you want to see change, the team, there's an acknowledgement that the team is comfortable with this result. There's a sentiment that, okay, Game 4 of the division series, this many home playoff games, this level of success in the regular season, this level of revenue, we are comfortable with that. So I would say that seems to be a sentiment that I watch unfold in front of my eyes on social media, which is that the organization is comfortable with this ending.
All right. Coming up, we'll discuss more with Emmanuel, and we'll preview a little bit of the offseason coming up. What's up, guys? Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth. And whether it's your 401ks, properties, or investments, when you don't have the full picture, it can make things a lot more complicated. And that's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal financial tool that helps bring your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface, either on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. And if you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch could be just for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of all your money without ever having to touch a spreadsheet. So don't let this financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONMLB. Back here in our off-season edition with Emanuel Berbari of Yankees Postgame, where you guys probably hear him most if you're on a Locked On Yankees here. I want to get to 2026 and what it could look like. Two major pieces that I want to start with, becoming free agents, and well, now I guess are free agents as the offseason approaches. Cody Bellinger and Trent Grisham both had amazing years for the Yankees. Both, I think, you can't even debate, outperformed their contracts and are going to get heavily paid this offseason. Where do you think they'll go, and where would you rather them go? Two different questions that could be answered two different ways. So I want to hear what you think on both of these.
Okay, so I'm going to preface this, and I'm sure some people understand where I come from doing post-game where you recap the games and doing like an SNY hit where I'm asked my opinion. And absent any personal relationships and anecdotes I received in the clubhouse, my opinion is completely different from the straight fact of the matter. And I say this knowing that Cody Bellinger and Trent Grisham, as you said, had unbelievable seasons. Bellinger is an insanely valuable player in the way that he can cover you 4 different positions at an all-star level. Max Fried this year called him an all-star at 4 positions, which is absolutely true. And both of them, rep the pinstripes well, in my opinion, handled New York well, and are great guys to deal with. Where they should go, in my mind, is Kyle Tucker. I don't think they bring back Trent Grisham or Cody Bellinger. I think Kyle Tucker is one of the best players in baseball. Did struggle a little bit this year at times, but also dealt with some injury that he played through. When you look at Kyle Tucker and his last few seasons, especially when he's been on the field for 140, 150 games, this is one of the 10 most premier players in the sport, in my mind. And everyone likes to talk about the Aaron Judge window closing. We truly don't know. He proves us wrong all the time in terms of 2022 and thinking that 62 home runs is the best he'll ever do, and then having 2 better all-around seasons than 2022 since 2022. So I don't know when his prime's going to expire. What I do know is it eventually will over the next, 4 or 5 years. And Kyle Tucker the Yankees don't have a player on the team right now that could theoretically pick up that mantle from an offensive and defensive elite production standpoint. No one exists on the Yankees that can do it the way Aaron Judge does. Now, Tucker can't, but he comes awfully close. It's like signing Juan Soto last offseason.
Do you think they'll get a discount on Tucker because of the poor production in Chicago? Like, do you think that has something to do with it? Because I haven't heard a lot of people. It kind of, the consensus seems they're either going to pick Bellinger or Grisham and go after one of them heavily and bring one of them back. The Tucker stuff has kind of died down.
It has.
So you think there's like is that from hearing anything, or that's just kind of like your opinion on what they should do?
Well, what we do know is last offseason, the Yankees' plan A was Juan Soto. They have bid heavily for him. No one can say the Yankees didn't put their best foot forward to sign Juan Soto and re-sign Juan Soto. Plan B started with Kyle Tucker. And the Yankees and Astros couldn't come to terms on a trade. He winds up in Chicago, et cetera, et cetera. But that was part of Plan B. I understand Max Fried was signed 3 days later after Juan Soto walked, and the Yankees pivoted perfectly to Max Fried. But Kyle Tucker was right up on that big board with Max Fried. But that was a trade that couldn't be pulled off as opposed to just shelling out the money and years to a Max Fried. So what I do know is the Yankees love this player. So if the price doesn't get astronomical to the point where, like, come on, guys, we're talking Kyle Tucker, not Babe Ruth. If it doesn't get so astronomical, I see the Yankees playing in those waters. Now, most realistic outcome, probably it does get absurd with Tucker, and the Yankees keep Cody Bellinger, because then they would have to if they can't land that type of reach. But my preference, my opinion, is Kyle Tucker, because I think it fits perfectly. It's that balance in the lineup. He could play left. Judge could play right. He could eventually slide over if Judge is eventually a DH or a first baseman years from now. Bellinger's great, but I just don't think he's on the tier of Tucker.
Interesting. Wow. Okay.
Are there any other surprising players you think the Yankees could possibly be in on that we may not expect?
I don't see anything else significant happening on top of, like, my preference being Tucker, probably Bellinger. Their pitching is pretty loaded on the starting pitching front, where you have a few major league caliber guys who have pitched at a high level in this league, competing for maybe like the 5th spot in the rotation. So you have a pitcher like Luis Gil, who was a Rookie of the Year. I understand he wasn't quite as sharp this season, but very small sample size coming back from injury. You have Gil competing for a spot. You have Warren in the mix for that spot again, and he had his ups and downs, but showed a lot of promise in a first full big league season. Clark Schmidt is eventually going to come back this year. Garrett Cole, of course, back at the top of the rotation by maybe the 2nd month of the year. And then you have Fried, you have Rodon. Cam Schlittler isn't just now a promising prospect. There's a guy who you'd put up there with the Carlos Rodon and who you value entering spring training of next year. That's how much he ascended this season. And they have really strong prospects in the pitching department in particular. Now, they traded a lot of the position player prospects, and that has winnowed out because some guys haven't panned out quite how they thought. But in the pitching department, they have a ton of depth. So I don't see them upgrading a ton on pitching. Maybe a tweak or two in the bullpen, but you already tweaked it a lot at the deadline, bringing a Bednar who's under control, a Doval who's under control. Bird didn't factor in outside of a couple of games. He got optioned to the minors, but he's going to factor in. The Yankees hope next year. So where are we seeing the tweaks outside of maybe a headliner move like Tucker Bellinger, and then a right-hand hitting catcher who can play behind Austin Wells, which would make a lot of sense considering Ben Rice figures to be the everyday first baseman next year. So it could be a very, outside of that splash move, and Bellinger wouldn't be a splash necessarily, but keeping him or Tucker being the splash, I don't see any big move outside of maybe a backup catcher.
I think bullpen, to me, I think they're gonna probably let Weaver and Williams walk, particularly. But to me, between Hess and LaGrange and the farm system, I think it's going to be a lot of like Matt Blake guys out of other major league organizations who had like 4 or 5 ERAs that he likes their spin rate. He likes something he sees that he kind of
Yari De Los Santos, that type of
those kind of moves where he sees a lot, or Fernando Cruz's, that kind of stuff.
Exactly. And you could take a flyer on a few of those guys. So I just wouldn't consider that. Those would be extra ancillary moves. Like, hey, you got a spring training invite, like come and earn a spot in the bullpen. I wouldn't consider that part of the overall layers of my offseason when I map it out. But those will eventually happen. They'll inevitably happen. I might see a world now where Weaver is back on a discount. Is that possible given how he finished?
I don't think so. I don't think so because the year was solid enough, and especially going back to last year's postseason. Remember, Weaver didn't get bad this year until really the last month of the season. So, and he wants to be a closer somewhere. I see a world where that's someone's offseason big move. The Royals, someone who doesn't spend a lot of money generally. That's a Kansas City Royals kind of move where Chapman a couple of years ago where they did that, or where they bring him in on a.
I'm going to counter you here. So I could see that happening if there's some, I don't know, less well-read organization that went into this year thinking Luke Weaver's a free agent. I'm going to grab him. If they went into 2025 thinking that's what I'm going to do, maybe they're not as well read up on what's happened recently. But I would think the rest of the league is watching exactly what the Yankees are watching. And when they do their report on Luke Weaver going into free agency, they're going to see a guy who needs to be fixed. They're going to see a guy who the league caught up to near the end of the season, who was as well respected as any relief pitcher in baseball and within that Yankee clubhouse. But they see those playoff games where he didn't get an out, 2 of them. So I think he might be looked at more across the league. And unfair as this is with Luke Weaver posting the season he did last year, he probably thought he might be lining up for big-time relief money. I think the league will probably look at it as a project, and that I'm not sure the Yankees will bring him back, but that could lend itself to a reunion on a discount.
And we're in alignment here, at least from what I gather as a sense. There's no world where Williams is back. Either the price is going to be too much in the free agent market, and someone's going to give him too much. I don't see a reunion.
I don't see it, and I think a lot of Yankee fans, more than you'd think, given how much grief he got from the fan base early in the season, I think a lot of Yankee fans might be open to it, like more than we think. I love what I saw. That was Devin Williams at the end of the season. So he finally got a taste of what the Yankees brought him in to do. So I think given the ending, there are a few fans more than we think that would be open to that reunion. I don't see it. I think this is a foregone conclusion by the middle of the season. It's not the fit here. It's not the right fit here. And there will be a team across the league that looks at what he did in spurts this year and think that's an elite closer, and he'll get closer money.
Yeah. On the other side, we're going to ask one more major offseason question for the Yankees. Plus, we'll talk about the rest of the postseason coming up on the other side. So, guys, good news. The NFL season is back. It's been back. It's been one of the most fun NFL seasons to start as of yet. And FanDuel has an offer that you're not going to want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. You pick a bet. You put down $5. If that bet hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Now, I love how FanDuel gives me so many ways I can bet between parlays, player props, even following the live lines during the games. Makes watching football so much more exciting, especially when you got a little juice on the action. It makes it so much fun to watch. Whether you're a casual fan or you love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience just that much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com today to download the FanDuel app and get started. Back here with Emanuel Berbari of Yankee Postgame, WFAN, Baseball Night New York, pretty much everywhere, and Fox Sports for the Big East this season. You'll be on play-by-play too, so that should be a lot of fun to hear you doing some basketball. I know you are a big basketball guy too. Let's not think that Emmanuel's all sports. It's not just baseball.
I appreciate you pointing that out. That I have no bias. Yes, I have a bias towards baseball a little bit, but I really enjoy. If I'm in basketball season, you come up to me, what's your favorite sport to call? I always answer basketball. And then when I get to baseball, it's overwhelmingly baseball. So they are a little more level, maybe 51-49.
Do you call yourself, I know you went to Fordham. Do you call yourself like a Fordham basketball fan, or is there like another team you pull for? Because I didn't go to a big time school, so I don't know how it works, but it's not like Fordham is on the level of St. John's or anything when it comes to basketball.
So really interesting. If Fordham's good, which hasn't happened a lot in recent memory, a couple of years ago, there was a magical Fordham ride that ended in the A10 semifinals. When they're good.
We were there.
Yeah, exactly. I'm a little bit of a fair weather when it comes to that. Fordham, I love, and I wouldn't be where I'm at without the school and the university and the radio station, WFUV. But I'm very much a fair weather fan. I'm so dialed out when Fordham's not good, just based on the time I have available to watch. And I'm so dialed in when they are good. Now, in terms of other random niche schools, like I remember my brother when we were really young, he was a big Duke fan. So I'm not a Duke fan myself, but when a big time Duke game is on, I have interest in watching it. Or one of my best buddies is a Maryland fan. And we go to College Park a couple times a year when I have off, like a few wedge off days in the off season. We could go and take in a Maryland game. So that's always fun. You go down to Maryland and make a day out of it, a couple days out of it. So those are just niche teams, but Fordham, fair weather for sure.
Interesting. Okay, now I need to ask this last bit of the Yankee offseason. What are they doing at shortstop? Because I got to be honest, the player that I saw in a lot of parts of the year, is not a Major League Baseball player. Just not. I mean, look at the numbers. I'm not trying to be insulting. I don't know if you know the guy. He wasn't playing at a Major League level. Just wasn't. I'm sure he was dejected in the locker room. I can't imagine. I mean, you see the guy every day. He's got to be dejected throughout parts of the season. It's hard to keep a straight face when you're playing that way. And they stuck with him the whole year, Emmanuel. I mean, there was like a 3-game stretch they moved away from him, but the whole year they stuck with him. He played all right in the postseason, but didn't hit still. Are they going to go with Volpe going into spring training? Is there going to be an upgraded short? I need some kind of clarity on that situation.
So you did notice how quickly the few games with Caballero during the 12-game stretch, that gauntlet stretch in September where they went 7-5. There were a few Caballero games in there. That's when Volpe was getting the cortisone shot in his shoulder. And that ultimately made him right to wrap up the season on the right foot, and how quickly he reclaimed that starting shortstop job. Like there were a few days there where it was open and Aaron Boone said, these games are too important, day in, day out, reevaluate it. But then once Volpe came back and had those 2-3 games where he was impacting the ball, it was his job for the postseason. We didn't see Caballero start unless it was in a platoon role. Third base, second base, coming off the bench, pinch running. And the Yankees had said, and it's true, you want to value Caballero as that like 10th man, and that utility guy is really valuable and useful in a spot start or as a pinch runner, off the bench, defensive replacement. But they weren't using him as a starting shortstop in the playoffs. So to me, that would signal, let's forget the production in the ALDS in particular. We know Volpe struggled mightily, but the Yankees, I don't think, are looking at that as any different than the guy who they saw in the regular season, who was extremely up and down, had these short spurts where he was really good, and then months of struggle. They weren't small slumps. They were tremendous slumps. So going into the season, unless the front office has changed its tune on what he can be and what he could potentially turn into down the road, I think they look at this as the same Anthony Volpe. So I don't see a world where he's not the starting shortstop next year.
I don't know how you don't try to change things up. Like, is there even
going to be a
competition? Is there going to be a competition in spring training? I think it's going to be an open.
There will be some credence lent to Caballero's going to get shortstop reps in spring training, no matter what. And Volpe maybe make it like he has to earn the job scenario next year as opposed to, but that still is really a competition. If you look at Caballero as
semantics,
it would be semantics at that point. So the only way I could see them upgrading it would be through some sort of trade in the offseason. If you look at the free agent pool with shortstops, extremely weak this year. And Bo Bichette, he's not a shortstop. And, he's a good hitter, and you hope that projects well down the road. He's the worst defensive shortstop in baseball, so you'd have to be signing him as a third baseman. So absent Bo Bichette and some of the money he could get paid, there are no shortstops available in free agency that would interest any Yankee fan. I think it's probably Volpe, who they still kind of believe in, and Caballero as a push you element. I just don't see any other options.
Personally, I just want to ask one more, Stacey. Personally, did you notice a difference in Volpe? Like walking around, was there a dejected look on his face throughout the season? Like was it visibly starting to affect him? Because how can it not? And he's from the area, so he knows the pressure about being a Yankee shortstop and stuff. Did you notice any of that, or was he pretty even-keeled throughout the year?
Very even-keeled when you speak to him, and so put together. When the Yankees talk makeup, you'll hear that word all the time, makeup. They're referring to Anthony Volpe and how he takes everything in stride. Every day is a new day. Now, if you get truth serum and Anthony Volpe behind the scenes that maybe we don't all have access to, that would weigh on anybody. I mean, not only are you struggling and you're searching for it, think about the struggle of being a big league hitter to begin with, and you're struggling times 10, times 20. So that has to weigh on anybody. And also, you're a human being. You understand what's being said about you in the world. I mean, he may be detached from social media smartly during the season, but he's got to hear it. Yeah, you can't possibly not hear that level of noise. So I think Volpe behind the scenes, it had to weigh on him. Volpe in terms of when the cameras were on or interpersonal relationships in that clubhouse or with reporters, he was as good as anybody at handling it. So I think entering spring training, it's going to be same mode. Like, I'm going in there to be a solid big league shortstop who can contribute to a winning team. I don't think anybody's expecting star level production anymore, what we used to dream of with Anthony Volpe. But him personally, he'll just be trying to contribute to winning and be a sound Major League Baseball player. And we will be hearing Yankee fan chatter about George Lombard should he walk into spring training and have a tremendous ride. That will be more of that online chatter of like a Jason Dominguez when he was 18. That's not going to happen on opening day next year. But could George Lombard creep further and further and continue to skyrocket up the radar?
Right.
Starting in February? Absolutely.
Right. We've talked about that on the show many times. We have a Minors Monday segment, and we're always joking, like, it's too soon for George Lombard Jr. Don't think that he's going to show up and, miraculously save the Yankees, and don't even think about it for 2026 either. The kid literally just turned 20. So everyone needs to calm down.
Yeah, it's like when we saw Jason Dominguez in spring training 3 years ago, and he was tearing the cover off the ball. And normally that's against some guys who are fighting for roster spots. So that's why we take spring training numbers with a grain of salt. Also, players are just trying to work on stuff at times. They're not looking, I need to get a base hit to right center. No, I'm working on this element of my swing during live action. So that's why we take those numbers with a grain of salt. But I love the yearly chatter. And this is why baseball's fun. Baseball nuts are fun, where people are just crazy about an organization. We want that prospect to succeed so badly and become that superstar, projecting it forward. So every year, it's a yearly tradition. Somebody's going to walk in, and I think next year Lombard will have a big spring again, which will have all
typical. Yes.
Yeah. So I'm assuming you watched Game 1 between the Blue Jays and the Mariners.
I did. That was actually the most casually I've watched a baseball game in a long time, and I enjoyed every minute of it. I watched the full game.
Now, what did you think of? We were talking about it on our live stream on Monday, how different the Blue Jays looked against Seattle compared to the Yankees and how different their game plan was. What was your thought of how they played Game 1? Because it was completely different than, I joked that the ALDS was the Blue Jays World Series and they expended all their energy on wanting to beat the Yankees and they forgot that they were playing in an ALCS.
That's possible. We'll have to see how the series unfolds, but I look at that Toronto performance in Game 1. A couple things happened. Seattle's pitching, which is among the best in baseball. And how about going on 3 days of rest and giving 6 innings after?
I don't understand how he did that. I really don't.
Yeah, especially after the 27 pitch first. So a lot of what Seattle did pitching-wise was remarkable, and they continue to be that's their strong suit. year after year after year. And on this stage, we always knew Seattle could come to fruition just based on the pitching staff they've had for years now. But the other thing is baseball's weird, and a couple days off, and especially the high of beating the Yankees, like that's a trap game for any team. If I was a Toronto fan, I'd be thinking, let's not let them steal one in game one off all the highs and emotions of the start spreading the news at Yankee Stadium and all the stuff that they basically danced on the Yankees' grave. So I think a couple factors were at play there, but I'd be curious to see if Toronto bounces back in game two. If they don't, I think Seattle's winning that series, and we could probably chalk it up to, yeah, that was Toronto's World Series against the Yankees.
Yeah.
Do you think the Dodgers should be as big of a favorite as they are entering the NLCS?
Yes.
Really?
I am 100%. Nobody's beating the Dodgers. And you can clip this as well. Nobody is beating the Los Angeles Dodgers. I watched them on off days of the division series and off days to start this postseason. Dodgers were in the wild card round, and they were playing the Reds. So I've gotten to watch a lot of Dodgers since they started to shape up their pitching staff for October and basically say, our bullpen has been a weakness for a lot of this season, but we have an embarrassment of riches, and they're all healthy in the starting rotation. So we're going to throw a Glass now at you. We're going to throw a Sasaki at you as our closer. By the way, that guy is filthy and ridiculous. So you may think I'm a Dodger fan just listening to this, but I've been watching a lot of Dodgers games just when the Yankees haven't been playing. And on top of the future Hall of Famers to start their lineup, that team is deadly. And they have postseason performers as well, like a Teoscar Hernandez, who basically owns everybody in October. So I'd be stunned if the Dodgers aren't back-to-back champs.
Wow, that's ultra confident. I'm not going to argue you. I got a soft spot for Milwaukee. I love that stadium. I love Wisconsin, but By the way, I'm
sorry. I just completely discounted the Milwaukee Brewers. So I'm sorry if you're a Brewer fan somehow watching this Yankee podcast, but I was just on a Dodgers rampage there where I've watched this team and I'm really bullish on them right now. But they're playing Milwaukee. That can't be. You can't understate Milwaukee. But the Dodgers are going to win in 6
but
games.
That franchise deserves a title, though.
They do. They do.
They deserve one.
Just because you deserve one, though, they're still the Dodgers. They're better than you. They're better than everybody else right now. Yeah. And I agree with you. There are certain cities that deserve a championship more than anybody. But good is good. And I just think the Dodgers are in that tier right now.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Oh, well. Thank you, everybody, for making Locked On Yankees your first listen every day. For your second listen, find the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, until there's a World Series champion crowned. You can catch me there on Sunday nights. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. That'll do it for this edition of Locked On Yankees. I'm Brian McKeon.
And I'm Stacey Gatsoulias. We will see you tomorrow.